Hey folks, it's Steve here. It's not the sort of thing that we normally do at the beginning of a podcast, but we felt it was necessary this time round. We've had to put a bit of a health warning on the show that you're about to listen to. Unfortunately, the sound quality isn't what we hoped it would be. We tried to do something a little bit ambitious, and it didn't really come off. But the content is just so good that we didn't want to lose it. So we thought what we'd do is we'd put a little health warning at the beginning of the show, and then leave it up to you folks as to whether you listen to the show or not. It is tough listening in some points, but we'd encourage you to stick with it and enjoy it. So it's really up to you to choose what to do. For now, I'd suggest you probably do as Mark says.
Let's crack open a beer and share some thoughts.
Welcome to Hopinions. It's probably the most craziest show that we're ever going to record.
Yeah, quite possibly.
In terms of the sheer scale of people that have got sat around the table at the moment.
Cast of thousands.
Cast of thousands, indeed.
Podcast.
Let's just jump straight into it. I think we're going to go around the table and get the folks that we've got with us today to introduce themselves. So pointing across the table, because we know our audio listeners love a good point. Who have we got across the table?
Bob Maxfield, Midlands, co-founder of the Midlands Beer Blog.
As Carl Marshall, brewer extraordinaire at Twisted Barrel.
And 80s DJ.
Apparently so. It's the most random intro I've ever heard.
I don't think I can follow it.
Give it a
Sarah
go.
Maxfield, the maker of the fudge that Bob always lays claim for.
Really?
Dave Hopkins, I'm the co-founder of the Beer Blog with Bob.
And it's you and me. We
Exactly.
don't need to introduce ourselves. So we are in the Wellington pub in Birmingham for what is the first of
Birmingham.
Birmingham.
Is there a different way of saying Birmingham?
Apparently so.
Lovely, we've called it
We're getting
already.
schooled on that already.
It's
We're-
a Midlands accent.
for the first of two shows that we're recording, which are focused on the Midlands. And I just want to give a big shout out to Geeky Brummy as well, who are here doing the sound tech for us as well. So again, for an audio podcast, it's brilliant to point out that we've got a sound engineer. We've got somebody actually sitting monitoring the
There's a
sound.
whole load of leads and buttons which I've never seen
No,
before.
I'm just like completely blown away by this. So yeah, the idea is that we've come up here to talk to the guys about Birmingham, the beer, the scene, the bars, and all the rest of it, and just get a bit of a feel for what's going on up here right now.
Yeah, see what the Midlands have got to offer.
Indeed. As always, we've got beer in glass.
Yes.
So
But you haven't tried it actually.
I've not tried, but before we try it, I'm going to hand over to the man that had a role in brewing this beer. So Carl, what are we drinking?
It's called Lokai. It's a mocha pale and a three-way collaboration. I know three-way collaboration can probably seem a bit in-depth because it's normally two breweries, but we actually paired with another brewery and an actual artisan coffee roaster at the same time. So we actually made the three-way collaboration more of a collaboration. We added cocoa nibs into the boil. So basically it's a pale ale in kind of style that you would get a mocha. A lot of coffee in there as well. It's a unique beer in my kind of imagination. It's a it doesn't taste what it looks like. Would probably be the better way to kind of explain it. That Revolution, the brewery that we actually brewed it with, is a very talented guy. I think he's currently on a small kit. He's going to expand soon, and he's also kind of friendly to a lot of the home brewers. If I remember right, he owns UK Brew, which is a massive home brew site where people order a lot of the beer recipe and actually the stuff as well. The coffee roasters are Court Horse, actually based in Birmingham at the minute. They selected 3 kind of beans for us to actually try to go with the beer and see what works best. So we tried them out with the wort, picking I think it was a Kenyan, don't quite me on that, but you'll looking now, ain't you?
Everyone suddenly checks the bottle.
Ethiopian coffee bean. There was 2 Ethiopians style beans that we actually picked to want to go in this beer. But if I remember right again, it's from the lowland of Ethiopia rather than the higher hills where the coffee beans are actually made. It tastes a lot more limey than what the other ones.
It's got quite a tangy finish.
Yeah.
There's definitely a tanginess to it,
Yeah.
which I couldn't quite work out where it came from. But from what you say now, that's more from the coffee bean.
Yeah.
You know, now you said lime, the thing that springs to mind is that chocolate limes,
Yes.
the
Yes.
sweets that you get.
Or the lime on the outside,
Yeah,
chocolate.
yeah, that's what you're getting coming through on
And I
this
think
beer.
the chocolate actually comes from the cocoa nibs that we actually used in the boil as well.
I mean, you're right. I mean, visually, and then aroma, and then mouthfeel and taste. They don't all seem to link together automatically.
No.
But it works really well.
Does work really well.
Yeah, I mean, this is a 5.8. I thought it was going to be bigger, just because of all that flavour.
Yeah.
That is really nice. But you're right. It's a bit of a confusing beer, isn't it?
I think there's every essence of each brewery, each part of the collaboration in there as well, and that's what we at Twisted Barrel tend to try and do, bring everyone together as a collaboration rather than not necessarily put one side into it as well. And I think everyone that kind of committed themselves to the beer has actually done really well. So.
No, well, it's a good start.
It's a great start. It's be an amazing beer to do with a tote bag on your head, wouldn't it? In terms of blind tasting.
I think we should all do that all the time.
Who do that kind of thing?
Who knows? So, as I said in the intro, we're here to talk about quite extensively the beer scene in the Midlands. So, just really going to hand over to. We're just going to sit back and let you guys go for it.
I'm just going to crack open another bottle. of this.
Just give us a bit of an overview in terms of where is beer at in the Midlands right now.
I think it's worth saying right from the beginning. I think that the Midlands itself has got some fantastic breweries. Obviously, you've got Twisted Barrel. There's
Do you feel obliged to say that, considering he's sat next to you?
amazing.
I'm digging it.
Alright, I'll say it. There's Fixed Wheel, who I think we've had on the podcast before. There's loads of really interesting, exciting breweries. And we went to Burn and Soul this morning as well, who won the Thirsty Games at Indie Man. So there's some really exciting breweries coming kind of here in the Midlands. I think in the Midlands as well, it's sometimes you think of Birmingham as kind of quite a tight kind of metropolitan area, but there's all the other surrounding areas like Coventry, Wolverhampton, kind of various other areas in and around kind of that are around and close to Birmingham.
Maybe it's best to maybe it's actually best to kind of narrow down and explain what Midlands actually is. Because it's part of 4 different areas.
Yeah.
And the West Midlands solely contains of Birmingham, or Greater Birmingham. I know what people from Birmingham.
It's not great.
Exactly.
But you're from Coventry.
Yeah.
That's why it's not great at Birmingham.
But like the bigger area of Birmingham, the Black Country and that as well, and Coventry, and then you've got the East Midlands as well, Cleveland and Leicestershire. You've got the North Midlands and South Midlands.
So for the uninitiated, where does the Midlands start? So my mum and dad live in Milton Keynes. Where is Milton Keynes just before we get to the Midlands?
Factually or our opinion?
Both.
You kind of last year we voted on the West Midlands Local Authority, and that stretch is. So that's what we'll be going with. Some politics.
Well, politics in it as well. So we
kind of-
cover everything, Steve.
But if you're going to use some kind of, so they determined that the West Midlands covered from Coventry to Wolverhampton, and then Birmingham and some of the surrounding areas, and that's kind of.
So Coventry's the start. So
How far south does it
Yeah.
go? So it's not north, it goes as far as like Stoke-on-Trent, and Stoke-on-Trent is still Midlands, and that's almost in.
I mean, I would probably furthest south it goes. I think is probably around Rugby.
Yeah.
But Rugby probably seems sometimes more. It's difficult to define.
I think like Titanic. I mean,
Maybe you can come back to it because the Midlands is
in the
a
middle of the country, isn't it?
Well, it's essentially just that big block in the middle of England.
So if you're not defined somewhere else, you're in the Midlands.
I think some people think it's the place that they go when they're travelling from the south to the north.
And you see a sign saying the Midlands.
That's it.
And you're right with it.
I think
And if you look at it in terms of football analogies, you know, when you look at the bottom of any league table, you know, you're teams at the bottom, they're usually from the Midlands.
There's the quote number one.
Just saying.
Quote number one.
So, but I wonder if that's part of the problem. Is it's actually quite difficult to define because different people define it in different ways. Like I said, the West Midlands Authority is Coventry, Wolverhampton, and kind of the Dudley kind of surrounding areas. But then
Greater Birmingham.
It's not Greater Birmingham. Genuinely, it was going to be called Greater Birmingham, and everybody in Coventry.
We could just let them.
Back into the original. So overview of the Midlands Beer Scene.
Yes, thank you, sir. We do. Yeah. Let's bring it back to beer.
I mean, we start ourselves as the Midlands Beer Blog, but we really the West Midlands Beer Blog.
Yeah.
We don't, you know, it would be nice if somebody in the East Midlands, people in, I mean, Leicester have got Frameworks, so we have a great Derby, have got a great beer scene there, some great brewers, some great fellows in that. Nottingham as well, but we don't really touch on that aspect. So we are, although we call ourselves the Midlands, we're mainly the West Midlands, so we can do with input if anybody's listening out there in the East Midlands and wants to join in, you know. But it is a strange thing. Yeah, although it's a big area in the middle of the country, it is kind of overlooked a little bit.
Okay, flipping it back to the question. How far west is the Midlands in the idea of breweries? How far would you? What's the furthest West Midlands brewery?
West.
Yeah. I would probably say Founds.
Yeah, probably. Because I mean, Salopian, how far west of Salopian?
Or Staffordshire.
Salopian starts coming to Manchester, don't they?
No.
There's one thing to learn is that there's a bit of a competition between Birmingham and Manchester, which is the number 2 city.
But
don't step into that.
It's an easy one to learn.
It's not really much of a competition.
So back to the beer scene then.
Yes. Again, let's try and bring it back to the beer.
Yeah.
What's going on in beer around here right now, regardless of where you define the borders? What's
Can I just throw in this right away? Looking from the outside in, my impression is a very good traditional scene.
That's what I was going to say.
In the Midlands and Birmingham. So where is it? So is that a true picture or is it just something I've got a perception of?
Bit of both, I think, if I'm honest. I think it's got real traditional roots, but there are some really interesting and exciting new breweries coming through that are trying to do something a little bit different. So, like I said, we talked about Burn Soul. There's a new brewery that's just started, Glasshouse. Twisted Barrel doing some exciting things. Fixed Wheel, doing some really exciting things. Fans. Green Dove, a lot of those breweries actually have also. So we talked earlier about.
You've named 3 or 4 breweries there which I heard of.
Yeah.
So is this part of it? You've named there are breweries and people making beer coming out, but apart from unless you're local, you're not hearing about it.
They're not coming up though. They've been around for years.
Yeah. Well, again,
some of them.
Fixed Wheel, you guys, just about I've heard of. The other 3 I haven't.
Well, Glasshouse are fairly new. That's to be said. I mean, that's a guy who used to work for Brewdog, and he's just opened his own brewery, and he's brewing some really amazing beers.
Still brewing on a really small kit.
Very small kit, I mean, he's going to step up. Burning Soul, we've just visited Burning Soul, so you can see Burning Soul have got the potential to get bigger, hopefully. I mean,
they make some fantastic beer.
Incredible.
They don't really get out.
No, this is
area.
No, I mean, this is part of the problem with the scene in the sense that, I mean, we had an email off Open Bailey about suggesting some West Midland beers for them to do in some, what's it called, the mystery tasting that they're doing. But they needed to be beers that were widely available in online retailers. And there aren't, I mean, obviously I think you guys, Twisted Barrel do stuff on online retail, but a lot of the breweries are too small to actually get out there. I mean, I think, Burning Soul, you can probably go to Cotteridge Wines, which is like the premier, bottle shop in, not just the Midlands, but probably one of the premier bottle shops in the country. You'll find, local beers in there, but then you're probably not going to go to anywhere in Manchester or Leeds or anywhere in Foley because they're just not big enough to distribute yet, which I think again is part of the problem with. I think with the Midlands beer scene, there's the problem of size that none of them are big enough to make the impact, but also, like you just said, there is that. I don't know what it's like in Yorkshire or Lancashire or down south, but in the Midlands, a lot of it is very traditional, really traditional. As someone who works for a brewery that is traditional, but also we're trying to break out and do a few newer kind of things, it's really hard. I mean, I work for Green Duck, just helping out Alex and racking the beers and that, but we brew a beer called Duck Blonde, which sells, it's the best selling beer that we do. And there's nothing wrong with it, it's just very plain. 4.2% blonde beer. Nothing, there's not much hop taste in it because the people that drink it don't want it to taste hoppy.
Okay.
And I had a guy come in the other day to pick up a new cask from us, and he said he got a traditional pub in the Black Country, and the Duck Blonde went really well. And then he had Duck and Cover, which is our session IPA, and he said a lot of people liked it, but he said some of my regular drinkers went, oh, that's too hoppy for me. And it's like, it's a 4% session IPA, it's not that hoppy. But it's almost like, you know, you need to kind of educate people that hops are one of the flavors of beers, and it's not, you know, it's not.
Yeah. I think we can probably draw some comparisons there to what's going on in Essex.
Yeah,
We've said this quite a lot of times, haven't we? That Essex brewers will produce beers that they know their punters are going to drink en masse, and they're going to drink a lot of it. The minute they start being a little bit experimental is when they find it's difficult to start selling those experimental beers because it's not what the punters
so
are
they
used to.
start to pull back on those beers. So what you described there did describe, I think, very eloquently the whole of Essex.
I think it's amazing.
I'd say that one of the interesting things about a lot of the breweries that are kind of surrounding, particularly Birmingham, I think, so kind of the Black Country breweries, so you've got Fixed Wheel and Green Duck, they do a lot of stuff on cask, and I think they do cask really, really well. But it's whether that cask market can kind of slip into what we call the craft market, and I think it's quite interesting to see the kind of the difference between the two, because I think both Fixed Wheel and Green Duck do an amazing job of selling their beers in sort of the Black Country area on cask, but kind of move it further afield, and both of them would probably struggle. But actually, with their keg beers, they do a really good job. So one of the examples is the beer at Green Duck at the moment, which is Ricochet, which is a New England IPA, and that's something they've not really tried before. And it's such a beautiful beer, and it's really hoppy and really clear as well. Steve actually liked it. But it's really
your reputation potential.
It's really interesting to see something like that, because what's been amazing about that beer is that within Birmingham Beer Bazaar, which was a festival that happened just a few months ago, they kind of Green Duck sold that beer there, and it kind of got a bit of a wider audience across the Midlands, which maybe some of their cask beers wouldn't necessarily do within craft beer. So I think there's a couple of breweries within the Midlands that do a really good job of kind of balancing that fine line between cask and keg, but maybe don't have the ability to kind of produce enough beer to actually go beyond the Midlands, so people don't necessarily see that.
I wonder if I think one of the issues as well, until recently, there wasn't many places within Birmingham itself that sold local beers. A lot of tied houses and lots of places that just had contracts with some of the macros. So the ability for brewers that brewed locally to sell in the city centre in a large area, and there's lots of bars and pubs and stuff in the area, was a real challenge. More places have opened now. We went to the Wolf earlier, and the Wolf, they do a really good job of getting in some local beers. Where we are now, the Welly, they get a really good selection on cask and keg of local beers. So more and more places are doing that, but kind of sometimes I think the issue is that if you really struggle to sell locally, that makes it difficult sometimes to grow, to then be able to produce beer to sell further afield. So that's something.
Maybe that's part of our success in a way as well, because there's been so little places in Coventry sell our beer. We've had to look outside that and kind of push a little bit more. So every month we go up the M1 and up the M6, and we occasionally go down the M1 as well to sell our beer.
Any of the roads?
No, it's only the M1 or the M6.
People have to meet you at service station.
Yeah. He hands over a couple of kegs that are around my bag.
Occasionally M5 as well.
Oh, wow.
It's the Harry Redknapp beer.
Yeah. Outside the window, I've got a deal for you.
But my point is that Coventry, it's got a very close-knit scene, and everyone is very, very supportive over in Coventry, making sure that we do well, especially in all emotional. We've had to force our way into a lot of markets at the same time by going up to Manchester.
So you've chosen different strategies. So rather than trying to target places in Coventry, which I presume is a little bit similar to Birmingham, there's a lot of tight places, you've gone, right, we can't do that. There's no point trying to fight it. We're just going to spread out further to places which are independent, we'll say the beers.
But how have you found it? I mean, if you went up to like, Leeds or Manchester, which are two cities that have got really good beer scenes, I mean, have you found it
hard?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because obviously if you're in Manchester, people, obviously you make quality beers, but they're all going to go, we've got this.
Yeah, it's very hard, and it's all about building relations.
Yeah.
It's like, if you think about any business, it's about building relations.
Yeah.
But the brewing scene, it's very close-knit anyway, and everyone's very supportive.
Yeah.
We've kind of I'd like to think that we took the whole kind of West Midlands kind of ethos of us being very, very close-knit.
Yeah.
Talking to each other outside a little bit more as well at the same time. Because the breweries in West Midlands, and even in the Midlands as well, are very helpful. I think that's one thing that we've got for us, where we're not represented enough. There's hardly any infight within breweries. Everyone's very supportive. Everyone helps each other out when they need to as well. It's a good scene. In the whole brewing sense of it, it's a very good scene to be part of.
So what was our inspiration for this, Steve? What was that spurred us to come to Birmingham? There has to be a reason. We didn't just wake up one day and go, let's go to Birmingham.
Can I just say, the answer is pretty much always the same with most things. It was Carl's fault.
I'm not sure this one was Carl's fault. I think this was your fault.
My fault?
Yeah, you started it.
I think we had a discussion about, there were a number of discussions going on about how we should maybe do something that focuses on the Midlands.
Yeah.
And we were like, yeah, let's do that, because let's be honest, sitting outside of the area, it's not an area that's maybe shouted about as much as your Manchesters and your Leeds and your Newcastles and places that are really shouting about what they do. And I think for us it was a case of let's explore what we could do there. And the lure of beer is.
I think I was mainly jealous of the other kind of like areas you were doing your I think you did your Essex kind of focus and stuff. So I think I was just being jealous.
But in an underline to that as well, you've been very supportive of the West Midlands beer scene. You have talked about it quite a lot already, and compared to any other podcast, I'd say that you're pretty much up there supporting it the most. So
And we continue to do so. There's 2 out of 4 emotional.
Yes, but I think you guys have paid a massive attention to what's going on around here and supported it a lot. So maybe it's just what I've seen it as is a general kind of evolved state of what you guys are doing, trying to get out there as much as possible.
Well, while we were discussing it with Bob and Sarah about doing this, Carl, you posted a blog, didn't you?
Did I?
Yes.
You did a blog. And there was a Twitter.
And you did a poll, which is kind of like outfit. So you kind of stamped all over that for us.
Yeah. We weren't happy about that. Just to be clear.
What
But you've given us beer since then.
What did the poll say?
Do you think the beer scene in the West Midlands is overlooked? If so, what could be done to improve it? Comment below.
And what did you think?
Oh, I've never had anyone throw it straight at
What?
How did you answer?
That'll be picked up by the mic as well.
Even though
the whisper will still be picked up by the mic.
I think
As someone that travels around the UK quite a lot, how do you?
I think it's overlooked.
Yeah, I mean, I did vote yes, it's overlooked.
Yeah.
And that's despite the fact that obviously I've been to your tap room, or the old tap room, as it was now, and I went to the Birmingham Beer Bash last year. I definitely think the Midlands is overlooked.
I think from my point of view, I used to travel around the UK quite a lot with work, and work would always take me to Leeds because that's where I was based, but I was also always in Manchester and London and kind of the big cities. We never ever came to Birmingham for anything, and it's interesting because Birmingham's supposed to be the second city of the UK, but yet it's not just beer it's overlooked. If you go outside of it, it's overlooked for a lot of reasons.
Yes. Most things.
Yeah, and it's strange because when you think about it, it's only just over an hour from London on the train. You can get here quicker than you can get to anywhere.
So all the other places you mentioned.
Yeah.
All the other places you mentioned, Birmingham's a minimum of an hour quicker.
I don't think it's just something that's unique to beer, but I think it's something that's not helping beer because it's not being seen as a destination city. People aren't coming here, and there certainly isn't the buzz around the Birmingham beer scene that you see around other major cities in the UK. I mean, we could all probably we've spoke about Leeds and Manchester, but you could probably add Sheffield, Newcastle, Bristol. You know, there's loads of places.
Liverpool, Western as well.
Yeah, that you can keep adding to that you're always seeing getting mentioned before you see any mention of what's going on in Birmingham and the Midlands.
So Carl, what sparked? Obviously, you did the poll. Then you followed up with the blog. So what sparked it for you? What was the? I need to answer the question. Yeah. Did something frustrate? There must be something.
It was a lot of frustration, to be honest with you, and speaking to the Midlands Beer Blog.
Guys out here.
I'd like to think that they share the same opinion about they were getting frustrated. Hopinions.
Just make sure we're on brand.
He's taking the Twitter poll now, trying to say his name wrong. Again.
The same opinion that it's very, very hard to try and get people to come to us, and whereas people say, "Oh, you're from Manchester, come up and have a drink with us," and look, we've got a couple of bars, you want to meet me there, and that. When you say, "Oh, I'm from Coventry," or "I'm from Birmingham, come and meet me in, say, Beer Gonzo," or "Come and meet me in the Wolf," or something like that, or Burning Soul, or Buyers Brewery in Coventry, everyone's like, "What? Why would I want to go there?" Like, they haven't been hyped up or shouted about.
So there wasn't one particular thing that said it was just like a build of. We need to say something.
Yeah, it's like it's got to the point now. The West Midlands is very good for beer, very good for breweries. Customer service is next to none in all the bars that I've been to as well. That's a very good point to make.
I thought you were talking about yourself.
No.
When I read the blog last year, it was on about Twisted Barrel about the Birmingham Beer Bash. I think it was a bit of a sleeping giant. Who are waking from their slumber. But I don't think, again, I think going back to what Steve said, I don't think that's just about beer. You said about football earlier.
Well, yeah.
You know, there was the Midlands clubs in the 70s and 80s were very high up in the football echelons as well. Businesses, industry, beer, is everything starting to build again?
It's interesting. I think there's been a lot of the industry has gone from the Midlands. I think that has some kind of impact. I think one of the frustrations we have around Birmingham specifically is lack of independence, and I think that also links in with that idea of where, if we bring it back to beer, breweries being able to sell to places. Comparing Birmingham itself to say somewhere like Manchester and Leeds specifically, the amount of independent retailers in the centre is a lot less. There's a great kind of group. There's a guy that runs a thing called Independent Birmingham, where you can get discounts and he's bringing together independent retailers. But if you walk around the centre, there's not a massive amount of independent retailers, and I think it's things like that that create a place being a destination, something that's independent, because what's on the high street is on the high street of most places.
And that's where I think Coventry succeeds quite well, because the council allow independents to shine a little bit more. Where we're based in Coventry, it's just outside the town centre, in a kind of artisan village.
So it's like permanent pop-up shops.
Yeah, and they've kind of let it grow, but it's full of independent shops, whereas the town centre is kind of like we've made our own little section of independent. And in Birmingham, it's not. There hasn't been that kind of awakening. So apart from the jewellery quarter.
Well, there are some places. I mean, the jewellery quarter is a good place. There's the jewellery quarter. I mean, there is Great Western Arcade, which is just up the road from that's got an independent shop. And then you've got the custard factory in Digbeth. And if you saw the custard factory, when you walk down to the custard factory, it's like, you think you're in Hackney or something like that. It looks like, oh wow, I'm going there for some cool shops and bars and all that. But you go to the custard factory and they've got clink. And that's it. There's nothing else there at the moment. And I mean, I was speaking to the guy, amazing enough, earlier in the week, who owns the custard factory, and they are trying to redo it and get some, because there's no way to go for food. I mean, Birmingham's got Digbeth Dining Club. On a Friday and Saturday, they have some fantastic street food vendors there. But some of these street food vendors could do with either a permanent place or a semi-permanent place. I mean, we said this when Grand Central opened. Grand Central to me was a perfect opportunity for Birmingham Council to go, well, we'll have one unit, and once a month, Andy Lowe's going there, Beckett's Barges going there, Sideboard going there, baking equipment. You have a different street food vendor, but instead they've got chain places. Now some of them are good, they're not all bad. I'd go in there and eat. I mean, Clappers Revolution's supposed to be good, Foe's supposed to be good, but it would be nice to have something that was, Birmingham based in there.
It's definitely the independent spirit as well. I think that one of the things that I get really frustrated about is that Birmingham's well known for the German market, but the German market's run by one organisation, and every fourth store is the same. And my argument is that actually we've got some great brewers, we've got some great some of our street food vendors are brilliant. Loads of independent kind of craft and people create some fantastic things. If the council had the impetus to do it, they could turn the German market into that kind of space to sell independent.
Something to spotlight, that as well as the German market, which everybody loves the German market. I mean, it brings people in, but it would be nice to bring people in for that and to have a bit of a spotlight on Birmingham or something like that.
It often feels like there's a real underinvestment in Birmingham city centre from the council side, not just financially but in time and kind of energy. And so we've kind of got one or two really good bars centrally. So we've got kind of Cherry Reds, we've got Tilt, we've got Post Office Bolts, which is really good. We've got an amazing bottle menu. Then we've got Brewdog. But financially, for independent businesses to buy into Birmingham, the rent is just too high. So you've suddenly got people buying on the outside and renting on the outside of Birmingham. So in places like the Jewellery Quarter, in places like the Custard Factory, but even the Custard Factory, that rent is high.
Yeah, it's high.
And then you've suddenly got a really kind of split scene. So
I've got on to that as well. A lot of the places that are in the centre of Birmingham have been around here for like 5 years before the rent's been hiked up. So everyone's been kind of going out on the outskirts, haven't they?
So actually around the scenes of Birmingham and around kind of the suburb areas, you've got a really good scene. But within the city centre itself, it's quite poor. And it's actually.
And then we've got the problem of trying to get people who are in the Birmingham city centre to travel, 10 or 15 minutes on the bus to go somewhere.
But we were discussing this earlier, and I actually don't think that the transport links help. Because, I mean, we tried to get a tram. And I'm playing marketing for this.
But this time it's not Carlsbad, it's marketing.
Yeah, I broke the tram system.
We tried to get a tram from New Street to the Jewellery Quarter earlier, and it broke down. And it's things like that.
Apparently it's never done.
First time did you hear?
I've never known it do that. But it does make it really difficult, because then from suddenly a 5-minute journey to Birmingham Side, it's 20 minutes.
You know that just about, you like you say, you had to, because like we come to Coventry, we've got a specific to go to Bell.
I'm big on them.
That's why
I did last night.
Yeah, and it's like a 20-minute walk from the station. Well, I don't think bloody hell, I'm walk 20 minutes to go on. Because I don't want to get there, so they make
a 20-minute walk is like from going New Street to Jewellery.
Yeah, exactly.
And we find it very, very hard to get people from Birmingham, Black Country, over to Coventry. And I know I'm victim of it as well, because I hardly ever go over to Stourbridge and come over to Green Dock and go into Fitzwheel and stuff. It is quite tricky to get.
It is, it's weird. Because obviously, like you say, when you go to Manchester, you don't think, well, I've got to walk 10 minutes to go to Paul Street or Brooklyn or something like that, or Leeds, I need to walk 10 minutes to go to
I think
Lokai.
another thing.
You just do it.
Another thing.
But I don't think it happens in Birmingham. When you
Yeah,
read
but I
about it,
think
it circles that whole city centre.
one of the examples
That
of
was
that,
no
though, is if you kind of look at the reference of Leeds, you've
Yeah.
got 4 or 5 really decent bars around the train
Well,
station.
the train station, yeah.
So you have 4
Yeah.
or 5 beers, and then, I mean, you can walk anywhere,
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
you, to be honest. But there aren't that many places that close together.
Oh, no, there isn't.
So
No.
what you're saying is you haven't got like a Piccadilly in Manchester, which is a stretch which is in a mile or so.
I'm just gonna say.
Let me just say this. Even with Coventry, I'm going to get this. Even with Coventry, every time we go to Coventry, which I absolutely love, there's some places in Coventry. Beer Gonzo has the most incredible sour list ever, which I love. But you have to get a taxi if you want to go. Shut up.
Welcome to my nerve.
If you want to go from, if you want to, I mean, there is a nice little walk. You've got Inspired and you've got Drayford. But if you just want to go to Coventry for a couple of beers, and it is really hard to get from A to B, and I've had to get a taxi from A to B.
I think that's the
for
problem.
years.
You wouldn't come to Coventry for a couple of beers. You'd come to Coventry to do, unless you're Steve.
Carry on. The presenter has just put my hand up, waiting for an opportunity.
I think that's the difference between Coventry and Birmingham. You would come to Birmingham for a couple of beers because there's quite a few places around the like New Street.
As well. Well,
You two are giving us quite a good segue. So your poll, Carl, did you read all the comments? Oh, do you want to say something?
Before we go on to the poll,
Okay.
I'm just questioning if whether part of the problem is that the Midlands is maybe slightly more fragmented than some of the other major cities in the UK. So in terms of Manchester and Leeds, everything's in the city centre.
It's also one city.
Yeah, and
covers more than one city.
essentially what you're talking about with Coventry and Birmingham, I suppose I could maybe relate that to either Manchester or Leeds and Huddersfield.
Yeah.
That you would spend that extra 20 minutes on a train and then a 20-minute walk to go to the likes of Magic Rock.
Yeah.
But yet people would travel from either ends of the country to do that.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they're not doing that to go to Coventry to go to Twisted Barrel.
Please make it a destination.
Yeah.
So some of the quotes we had on your poll, Carl, from Miles Lambert. And as an outsider looking in, I'm not really aware of many breweries from the area. So from Catskill, we also had my thoughts exactly. Would love to visit Beer Gonzo, but not sure of anything else in the area to make it worthwhile.
These are comments on the poll that you ran.
This is nothing to do with us.
This is what should have formed the backbone of your blog.
There was something quite interesting. Can I just touch on that last comment about Beer Gonzo?
Yep.
So me and Bob went to interview Rant at Beer Gonzo, didn't we, a little while ago for Midlands Beer Blog. And there was something really interesting about that, because what Ant was saying is it's actually suddenly become a place where people travel from and to. So you've kind of got people who want to meet somewhere centrally, from maybe somewhere like London or Nottingham, but want to meet somewhere in between. And actually suddenly somewhere like Beer Gonzo has actually become quite a good meeting place, because it's not that far out.
He consciously builds the beer list to be something to pull people in.
The beer list, the one time I went there for about an hour and a half, was fantastic.
That's constantly.
I don't think I've ever been able to stay in Beer Gonzo for an hour and a half.
Well, because we'd already been to see you, Carl. So we had some other comments. I think the West Midlands need to shout more about its beer scene, so perhaps referencing what you were saying earlier.
Thanks to you guys, we're doing that.
Yeah, not sure you can do any more than you do. It takes collective effort of breweries, retailers and punters. That's what happens up here. So that's from £300 cyclist up in Newcastle. From Mark Johnson, there must be a lack of promotion somewhere. Yours is the only brewery that springs to mind, Twisted Barrel, and that is possibly only because of you.
That's because he's always on Twitter.
But it's interesting because you're on Twitter as you, aren't you? You're not the Twisted Barrel.
I'm not interested on Twitter as him. He's on Twitter as someone else, I reckon.
Yeah. So
He's just a Twitter addict.
so you're not actually doing the promo for.
I retweet and I tweet about things that I appreciate. I like to buy my own beer. I don't like to get freebies off anyone or anything like that at all.
I know, I've tried buying you a pint stand. It's like the hardest thing that I've ever had to do.
And normally that should be one of the easiest things to make has to do.
Yeah, but for me, I feel like if I'm going to drink something, I need to pay my way, and like it's me doing all the work. So
Okay, in that case, I can't talk about the beer you just gave us.
exactly.
Sure, yeah.
I was going to say it's really nice.
Yeah, which is actually quite good actually, because we've had quite a chat there without really talking about the beer, and we've all been drinking considerable amounts of this beer while I've been drinking. So let's just get some thoughts on this, and then we can maybe move on to one of the other beers that we've got, one of the other many beers that we've got to feature on these.
Well,
We deliver properly.
Well, to be fair, we've gone for a second pour, you and I, Steve.
Yeah, because we couldn't get a word in it.
Well, that's true.
That was why.
I think that the coffee bit is sort of really soft for me anyway. I liked it, but it's
on the nose.
It's gone into the background now. The coffee bit, it's just a really nice sort of pale ale, lots of flavour, lots of depth to it. I'm really enjoying it.
It gives it kind of a bit of almost a slightly creamy finish to it. That enables it just to go down really easy, and you just go back in for a little bit more.
Any other thoughts?
It's very easy drinking for something that's kind of coffee pale. I'd kind of almost go white stout. There's just that sense of really nice kind of coffee flavours and something dark about it, and I'm not sure. Yeah, if I was doing a blind tasting, whether I'd necessarily pick up that was a pale beer.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout, and I think also the white stout is a good shout as well. What do you think, Bob? Not asking you.
I was going to say,
you can't review your own beer.
It was nice.
And there we go. There end of the lesson.
Okay, so what's up next that's being poured into glasses currently?
So this is, we talked about Glasshouse. Glasshouse Brew Co. And Josh used to be a barman at Brewdog, and part of the homebrew club at Brewdog in Birmingham. And my understanding is James Watt came, spent the weekend working at the bar at Brewdog Birmingham. So Josh took the opportunity to let him try some of his homebrew stuff. Was really impressed, given the opportunity to go and kind of do a bit of brewing up in Scotland, and kind of Josh has really kind of developed from there. A lot of his stuff is really exciting, and I think he could be a kind of one of the breweries that might kind of be the next brewery that people will get to hear from Birmingham. This particular beer is a raspberry sour. That's all raspberries in the fermenter. It's called Medjuli, after his mom.
Nice. Cheers.
You know how much you love sours? That's very good.
It's all raspberry on the nose, isn't it?
When you add fruit actually into the fermenter, then if you just add juice or concentrate later on, massive difference. It's a lot more subtle, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is so drinkable.
Yeah.
So what percentage did you say it comes out? Did you know?
You did tell me.
As Bob looks at his notes. See, this is what happens to us.
Should we just have a look on tap?
You did tell me, Bob. It's brilliant at the time.
So while we're working our way through this one, we'll go through a few more of the comments that you had on your poll. So it's we've not finished with you yet.
Did we get the scores in the end?
I don't think we did. So 79% of people went for yes, they think the area is overlooked, which
It
is
seems like the minority decided to make a comment.
that's always the way though.
Yeah, because it's easy to vote, but to actually quantifiable comments will usually often be the negative.
Well,
side.
professionals at polls and reviews.
Yeah, so don't try to do your own. Come talk to us.
So Matt Chinnery at Half Pint Gent. I've had a couple of great nights out in Brum, some great places. Coventry, I was straight to the footy and straight out of Coventry, so didn't really get a chance to check it out. David Martin at DM27, not the other David Martin that we know, maybe symptom of a wider issue that the West Midlands isn't as cool as Manchester, Liverpool, etc.
Also, the loss of the Birmingham Beer Bash, even if temporary, is unfortunate. So what do you think about that one in particular in terms of losing what was rapidly becoming possibly the country's most exciting beer festival?
It's a hard one to be perfectly fair. I think the Birmingham Beer Bash was run particularly good. The Birmingham Bazaar, Rum Bazaar, that happened this year with Birmingham Beer Week, was a very good continuation on from that. But I feel like there needs to be something more maybe next year, maybe an amalgamation of the two, Birmingham Beer Week and the Birmingham Beer Festival. It seems to work very, very well with the Birmingham Beer Week at a different time with the Birmingham Bazaar, but putting them both together will create much more of an impact.
A lot of the guys,
That's my first one.
Yeah, so Dave, who's the guy behind the Beer Bash, I think spends quite a lot of his time in Crewe now. I think it's become more difficult to run something from Birmingham. So I think that's part of the reason, and I think he started a festival in Crewe itself.
Yeah.
So I think kind of some of his focus was around there. So there wasn't then the opportunity for somebody to step in and take on the bash. The Beer Bazaar happened this summer. Different group of people, different venue, more city centre based. Actually was really positive and lots of local breweries focused. The beers, there was a really good selection of beers, but it didn't quite get the following, the kind of, the
I think that was probably mainly down to it being the first year as well.
Yeah. I think he took a hit off because I think the Birmingham Beer Bash really started to get a good following, really started to pick up.
Well,
It was hitting a lot of the right notes,
you see that
and then it stopped.
places like Indie Man Beer Festival as well, that no one really kind of realised it was happening until probably like the second or third year that it was actually happening as well. So
It takes time to build it.
Beer Bash was in its third year before it stopped, and then the Rum Bazaar started the first year. So a lot of people never actually heard of it. No one really knew that.
So do you think the area's missing something like that that's got like the focal point for beer? Because again, you look around the country, you've got Indie Man, and a lot of this is going to come down to the fantastic venues that these festivals occupy.
It's part of the problem, but when we as Birmingham beer drinkers, we look on Twitter and you say, oh, Pop City, and think, wow, fantastic, I want to go there. Elk City, I want to go there. Bristol, Craft Beer Festival, Liverpool, But I can't imagine that there's many people from outside the West Midlands that looked at the Birmingham Beer Bazaar, partly because they didn't promote it as well as they should have done, and went, oh, we want to go there, which is a shame because, as Bob said, it was a really good festival. I mean, they had, we had lots of local brewers there. We had quite a decent cash rate. They got some quite interesting cash beers on. They had a bar from Tilt that had got phenomenal beers on. So you get phenomenal beers, but it was just. I mean, I think partly that was down to the promotion of it, but partly, again, it just goes back to that thing that Birmingham just seems to be underrepresented in anything. I mean, I know, we quite took maybe on football early on, but I think again, it's not just football. It's like there's like a cultural thing about Birmingham that people don't, because I mean, if you even go and if you think about music, whenever anybody goes about music, you talk about Liverpool, local people, talk about Manchester. They've got Oasis, you know about Birmingham, and you go,
it's the home of metal.
It is the home of metal. It is the home of metal. Country,
and then what does that really signify? What does that really signify?
Even with something like music, you don't. I mean, Bob and I were talking about the Foo Fighters this morning, and it's completely irrelevant. But again, they miss Birmingham out and gigs.
They miss the vast majority of the country out, to be fair.
Manchester.
I mean, probably quite a poor example. A lot of people.
You're probably right about bands in general.
And I think, again, you go back to this whole second city thing, and you miss out Birmingham again.
Well, you don't ever hear of bands playing the NEC anymore, which it was always, whenever, back when I used to really be into music in my teens, it was that the big venues were Wembley Arena, Birmingham NEC, and that in fact, that was probably it. Back sort of like, 15, 20 years ago. Now, there's so many venues that can cater for it, and what with the, bands now going into stadiums and playing stadiums as well, all of a sudden,
places like the NEC are now just used for, I don't know, what was the last thing that the NEC hosted? Dog show maybe? Or something.
I think the steps are coming up.
You know that.
You know that. Don't Don't give me that.
Is it steps on the eve of the Crimbo Grill?
Yes, it is.
I think you go back to the beer.
Yeah, can we do that?
Because he told us on the train on the way up here.
Yeah.
Never miss an opportunity to plug something we're doing.
I thought, what, steps are going to
but
play up? Steps are going to go to the concert on Friday, Sheffield the next day.
That's it. That's exactly it, mate.
You go back to the beer bash, and I think, and kind of venues locally. I think one of the interesting things is there's actually very limited decent sized spaces to host a decent beer venue in the city centre. And I think, I know you look at Indie Man, and actually, it is a bit of a trek out of Manchester city centre, but it's not far.
No.
But that's not a massive venue.
No, it's not.
It's an old swimming pool.
Yeah.
We've got those.
No, it's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I think
They utilise the space really well.
Yeah.
And I think actually you go back to Beer Bash and
I thought the Beer Bash
space
venue was
Beer Bash
excellent.
is brilliant.
Yeah.
It was such a good venue.
And it's sitting outside London Canal.
Yeah.
It was brilliant. And actually on a summer's day,
Yeah.
it was fantastic.
Can I reverse it the other way then? How many British breweries would actually come to Birmingham to put a tap kind of for the
For a
weekend?
festival.
Yeah. Do you reckon there'll be many breweries that will do that?
Well, I think there would be.
Siren
I
have
just
got some
don't think
links.
it gets-
Simon, I would have thought Simon would have
Well,
been.
the thing
So is it a case of like
The
a
siren-
film
yeah,
again, someone
well-
needs to build something so they can.
Yeah, but you say that, but then think back to Cotteridge's birthday party, his 20th birthday. Cotteridge go to Simon and go, we have a birthday party, can you move it? Yeah, okay. They go to Magic Rock, can you move it? Yeah, okay. They go to Lucy, can you move it? Okay. Yeah, the big taking. Once Cotteridge,
They've got fantastic relationship.
Cotteridge has got a fantastic relationship. Again, it's that thing, if, Cotteridge could transport what they do into Birmingham City Centre, that would be fantastic. But we know that's not going to happen because we spoke to Jazz and Cal, and A, there's not the venue,
No.
because again, it comes down to rental rates as well. And B, they're still not really sure how big the Birmingham City is, because when they have their parties, their tap takeovers, we go to them and we see people there, and then they'll have another one, we go to them, we see people there, but it's the same people we see.
You know what I'm waiting for?
Go on.
Beavertown's to open a barbecue place.
Oh, yeah, well, London's been looking at that
But
ages.
on the other hand, you go to something like Siren, and Siren Craft have got a partnership with Original Platymen, and
Yeah.
Original Platymen and Siren have got a bar and a place together.
Yeah.
So you can't say that these places won't come to
No,
Birmingham.
no.
They do come.
In all fairness, Beavertown have been looking for a long time.
Yeah,
They've got
definitely.
links with the region. Obviously, Logan's dad's, Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
I'll finish my rants with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's really easy to
I just thought I'd say that because I'll probably explain.
Okay, so we're getting final thoughts on this one then.
I'm
Are
much higher than the bit of
Oh, there is a bit more.
So-
This is really nice.
Yeah.
So it's a 3.8%
Yeah.
raspberry beer.
we? It's just incredibly drinkable.
Yeah, it is.
It's just like drinking raspberry juice.
Yeah.
But it's
Again.
just got a nice little. There's something just running through it because it's got alcohol in it. It just takes it away
Yeah.
from just being fruit juice.
Yeah.
I think I did make a joke online recently with the guys from kind of Burning Soul and kind of included Glasshouse. That I wouldn't be surprised if Glasshouse were included in the Thirsty Games again. next year.
Well, I did think that. I did want that. I nearly said that to Josh. when I saw
We've
him
said
on Tuesday.
we've said a few times.
I think it would be great if Josh could get involved and we could try and do a Birmingham double, because then maybe that would get on there. I think we might.
Yeah.
Oh God, there's
Well,
two good
once this has gone out, it's going to be on the map. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, we've got, again, it just underlines we've got some really interesting breweries
Yeah.
making some really good beers.
Yeah, I mean, we've
I
had,
think
we've had two beers so far that are pretty much opposite ends of the scale.
Yeah.
In terms of what they can do. I think we've got
Yeah,
a
what's the-
third one.
what's
to,
the third one coming
to,
out?
to try now as well. haven't we?
Sorry, the third one is an interesting one.
It is. Shall I introduce this? Just
Yeah,
a little
please
bit?
do.
Okay.
You know a little
Can you
bit about
explain
it. Works
it
for
to
the brewery.
We like it when someone tells us stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is when the Birmingham Beer was announced, and they a lot of local breweries got involved in our bars, and I work, as I said, at Green Duck, and so Alex at Green Duck decided to do a couple of special beers for the stop passing it.
Sorry. I'm just going to hug them all
Yeah.
to you because I know.
So it's
Stop
not to do.
chicken with beers into on tap.
So obviously, the whole New England IPA style was a big thing. So he decided, because we, we've got normal big FP.
Hey!
He decided to do this New England IPA, which I think ended up at like 7%. And then he did a beer called Renaissance, which was an Imperial Mild, which I thought it was actually nuts doing this, because I thought, who the hell was an Imperial Mild?
Twisted Barrel.
There are people doing it, but which
Never missed a chance.
was a great beer, and 9% Imperial Mild that didn't taste like that. But this New England IPA, I mean, I've had it, as Alex was brewing it, he was giving me out the FV and little things, I was tasting it, I'm thinking, this is a fantastic beer. And I'd actually, when he actually came it, he gave me some. And the night before I'd been to Brewdog and had the collab, didn't they? Did Brewdog do a collab with Cloudwater? Is that the one they did? Yeah. And I had it, and I said, this is as good as the Brewdog Cloudwater collab, but, my palate's not fantastic, but I'm a little bit biased, so, maybe I'm speaking.
Was that the tobacco one they did?
No, that was the Big Town.
Oh, okay.
Travel one was the.
It was the proper New
England.
Yeah.
So, but then when we went to the beer bazaar, and we set the barrel on, we gave it to people, and Rich from, we had a bit of trouble with the taps, so Rich from Burning Soul came down and helped us out, and when we got everything sorted out, I gave him the taste of beer, he went, wow, that is really good, and he went, that tastes like a Cloudwater beer.
Right, so let's stop it there.
Yeah.
Let's find out.
Can we just say one quick thing before we review it? Is that we've got 2 bottles of this. The one that we've just popped open, which the poor sound guy is going to remember that for a long time, is kind of an older version of it.
The original
so
version.
How old is it? About 4 months?
Yeah, probably, yeah.
So there's kind of a bit
10-year-old beer.
It's got an incredible nose.
There's a bit of a hot fade in this one. It's still, to be honest, it still tastes incredible. It does still taste incredible. But what we've also got in front of us is a bottle of the new beer. Unfortunately, this one was only bottled 6 days ago, so it's not quite carbonated.
Boils.
So we've kind of boils. But so you've kind of got 2 beers here. One which is slightly older, and one which is slightly newer, which is undercarbonated.
I'm just thinking blend.
Yeah.
Let's get some of that new stuff.
So let's try a little bit.
Cheers.
But when people were drinking at the bazaar, I gave it to Richard Sandler, who's the guy who owns Clink, one of the co-owners of Clink, and he said, "What's that?" And I said, "It's Green Duck beer." He went, "That's Green Duck," and there was almost a kind of sense of surprise that Green Duck could brew a beer like this. Yeah. And obviously, I know, Alex, he's only 24, but he's a fantastic brewer. He knows what he's doing. He's a really good brewer, but it's just sometimes he just doesn't have the chance to do this. But obviously, give him the chance, And this, a lot of people were coming up to us over the weekend saying this was the best beer that they had at the festival.
Speaking from a perspective, this is very, very well made.
Yeah.
And also, I hope you don't kind of shy away from your traditional stuff as well.
Yeah.
Because your traditional beers are really bang on.
Yeah.
I want you to produce more of this.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah.
But still keep what you're doing.
Getting the balance.
Yeah, exactly.
I think one of the interesting things about Green Duck is that actually a lot of the beers, like the one we're drinking now, aren't selling very well at the tap house itself, are they? So you've kind of, Stourbridge is traditionally a very much cask focused kind of place, and they're still really enjoying their cask beers. So you've kind of got, as you mentioned earlier, the Duck Blonde, which sells really well there, but something like this might not. Yeah. But actually, what's brilliant about this is it sells across Birmingham.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, we can sit down. I've just started working for a new bar that just opened in Arborn, called the Paper Duck. And
Dave's got something about ducks.
And we put this on, and it's sold out in a few days because it's. And obviously I was recommending it to people, but despite the slight bias, I recommend it because it is a fantastic beer.
Well, I think for me, if in this modern age of everything has to be drank uber fresh.
Yeah.
If you haven't drunk it within a week, then it's already going off. What we're drinking here is a 4-month-old IPA that has an incredible nose on it.
Yeah.
Yes, maybe some of the flavours have dialed down a little bit,
but it's 4 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
You know, you can still taste what it would have been
Yeah,
like.
but the only thing about the
Fresh,
flame
you know.
start down because someone said it's 4 months old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On its own, if I didn't,
It doesn't taste
if
tired.
we didn't have the
No,
caveat
no.
to start off with,
Yeah, yeah.
there's no Thai flame, there's no
No,
Thai aroma.
no.
It's still quite zingy as well on the
It's a
palate.
really good beer.
I think it's really nice.
It's got a real nice bitterness that
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes missing in some IPAs.
Yeah,
Especially
this is,
dippers.
this is what I like in these kind of beers. This is what I look for in these kind of beers. If you want to have a nice bit of alcohol, I want the zinginess and the bitterness. as
I want a
well.
bit of finish to it.
Because I want to go, I need another bit.
I think one of the things that the Midlands can do with is just people wanting to be a bit more adventurous.
Yeah.
And people no, I don't mean the brewers. I don't mean the brewers. I don't mean the
As Carl coughs in the corner.
I don't mean the brewers. I mean the drinkers.
Yeah.
I mean the drinkers because I don't nationally, not just.
But then necessities again.
Yeah.
It's the brewers are making beer because that's what they get told punters want to drink. So the punters drink it, so the brewers make it. So it's who breaks the cycle?
I don't think this is just isolated to the Midlands and Essex as well. This is probably being replicated in other areas in the country as well.
I suppose from our,
Big
it's our experience. Isn't
Yeah.
it? You know, this beer we're drinking now is a fantastic example of what can be done.
Yeah.
So I think what we've seen here is so far we've drunk 3 very different beers from 3 very different breweries as well, but yet there's nothing going on in the Midlands. Is there?
Well, the thing is, I think the brewers are patting each other's backs.
Yeah.
And the brewers are patting each other's backs and saying, well, then you're making a good beer, well, then you're making a good beer. It tastes amazing.
So why isn't that message getting out there further? And no, that's not an answer for now. That's a cliffhanger. Because right there is where we're going to end this episode. And we're going to. Really? Is that what we're going to do?
It's either that or Neighbours. That's the only one I can think of.
And we're going to come back to that in part 2 of our Midlands Special.
No, can't come back to that.
I don't think there's any way back in. But as always, if you want to get involved in what you've heard so far, use the hashtag Hopinions. Let us know what you think about the Midlands or any Midlands beers that you've enjoyed.
That's me.
At the Bearded One. There'll be a link in the show notes, of course. Let us know what you think about the first part, and part 2 of this will be out next week for you to listen to. Thanks to everyone for your input so far. I've really enjoyed the beers. Cheers.
Yeah.